Right, a very good evening and welcome to this Hustings event at this fantastic venue here at the YMCA, Newark and Sherwood Village. My name is Simon Gabitas. I'm the current chairman of Newark Business Club, and Newark Business Club is delighted to be hosting this event this evening. A very couple of quick safety announcements. So there is a fire alarm test tonight, but it's at 9 o'clock. So if we hear it, we've been here too long. If you do hear an alarm, please make your way. You can go down the stairs this side where you came up and then meet in the car park, or alternatively through the doors that side, and it would be on the football pitches that are behind us. I'm back. Should anyone need toilets during the next 90 minutes, again, through the door here, and it's just on your left-hand side before the stairs. So, why are we here? Well, a new combined authority has been created after a £1.14 billion devolution deal was agreed for the area. This translates as a £38 million a year deal for the next 30 years, alongside devolved powers around transport, housing, skills, adult education, economic development, and net zero. As part of the deal, a new East Midlands combined authority has been created, encompassing Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, which will be led by a new mayor. It's really great to see a real mix of different people here this evening, and just having a look through the attendee list, I can see that we've got residents here from Newark and Sherwood, we've got business owners and representatives, crucially people that employ other people as well. We've got people in sport, from grassroots to professional, people in education and further education. And we've got those representing the council, from parish councils to the town council, district council, and the county council. So what's the format? So all the candidates are going to get 5 minutes each to introduce themselves, give us an idea of their background, and also discuss any key focus areas. It's worth noting that Councillor Alan Graves, who also serves as the current Mayor of Derby, has sent his apologies in advance due to a last-minute family emergency. So in terms of the introductions, we are going to do this based on alphabetical order, based on surname. After we've done the introductions, we are then going to go out and ask questions. So we have our Newark Business Club committee members on hand with a roving mic. And I understand we've got a number of questions from people in the audience, so we're looking forward to getting a lot of feedback and questions from you. So, without further ado, looking at alphabetical order, we're going to start with Frank Adlington-Stringer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Frank Adlington-Stringer. I'm your Green Party candidate. I'm an elected councillor in North East Derbyshire, the first ever Green elected there, and I'm promising you a green industrial revolution. I've been clear from the start what that means, and I'm excited to deliver that on the 2nd of May. That means investing in our students, investing in our communities, investing in our public transport, and investing in our manufacturers. We have a real opportunity with this mayoral election to put ourselves on the map, to make the East Midlands the future powerhouse of the UK's economy. Unfortunately, our communities have been left behind. We have 86,000 job seekers, the lowest levels of higher education qualifications, the lowest levels of public investment in the last year, and that's despite our region being 5 times larger than the West Midlands. Our productivity is 14%, it's 14 percentage points lower than the national average. Those aren't statistics that I like to stand here and lay out, particularly as a young person from our region, but that's why I'm standing for election. We have a plan and an opportunity to do something different. By standing up, demanding reparations from government, getting a better deal than that we've already been offered through this devolution deal, we can invest in our communities, build something better for the future. Whether you're a Green voter or not, you can surely see that the economy is headed in one direction only. There's a need to transition. This opportunity right now means that we can put ourselves at the front of the queue. The rest of the country, the rest of the world can watch and wait as we invest in our manufacturers, we retrofit our homes, and we make energy sustainably. Every home I build on brownfield site will be 100% sustainable. we will be using sustainable energy because that makes sense, because it brings down the cost of living for people. Their bills are cheaper. I'm the only candidate that has said from day one we'll bring the buses back into public control. When we do that, we will make subscription-style ticketing, free travel for young people and elderly, and make sure people can get around to work and education opportunities much easier. There is a massive opportunity here, but the others are offering you business as usual. If you don't vote for something new, we can stagnate. We all know there's going to be a change of government. Whoever that is, they will be answering to London, and that's not what I'm about. I was born in Chesterfield, raised in Derby, educated in Nottingham, and I'm elected in Derbyshire. This is my region, and I'm really proud of it, and I want to be a strong voice for our people. I'm fed up of us being told what to do by London. I'm fed up of us being told what to do by the two main parties. It's about time we had something different and someone who's prepared to stand up for us. The unitary authorities that are represented in this county authority, 2 of them are Labour and 2 of them are Conservative. You'll have a government of one of those colours as well. Whoever is your mayor will be trying to flip-flop to serve their party. That's not what I'm about. As a councillor in North East Derbyshire, the only Green on the council, I have to compromise, I have to work with people. And that's why, as your mayor, I will bring in citizens' assemblies so that people like yourselves are involved in the decision-making process. You have an opportunity to come to me and make sure that what we're doing works for you. And I'm really proud of that. I'm offering something different, offering something for us to get excited about, and I hope that you see that vision too. I won't go on anymore. I want to hear your questions and give you the space to ask us and tell us what you want from us as your elected representatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. So next, over to Ben Bradley.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Ben. I'm the Conservative candidate in this contest, and I live here in Newark. We've been and done many, many hustings, as you might imagine, around the entire region at this point. It's nice to finally be able to do one near home. And I'm part of this community. I've been the chairman of the local hockey club. My wife and I both coach sport with young people around our region. If you work in business in Newark, you may well work with my wife, who works in commercial property at Newark and Sherwood. So this is an area that I know well. It's an area that I call home and where I'm part of the community. So really pleased to be able to speak to you all tonight about the opportunities for Newark and the places like it, the local businesses, and what this brings. First thing to answer, I think, is what is it? We've had a lot of conversation, I have, over many years now about the Combined Authority and what it means, but I fully recognise that a lot of people still haven't heard about it. A lot of people still unsure what it is and what it looks like. So fundamentally, this is a £4 billion investment in our part of the world. It's a chance to do things collectively, where perhaps in the past, certainly there are all sorts of services currently where we duplicate things 16 or 18 different times across all the different councils across our region. It's a chance to bring that together in partnership and work together more effectively. And it's a chance to bring powers down from central government, because I too am fed up of being told what to do by people in London. But actually that's the entire point of this. That's about bringing powers, bringing funds away from Westminster and bringing them here to our communities so that we can make decisions that are based on our local priorities and based on what we want to see delivered here in Newark and here around Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Now that's quite exciting to me, because as somebody who is currently the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council, I see on a daily basis the challenges of trying to work to national ring fences and rules and budgets and all the things that may or may not be appropriate for our area that have been decided by a civil servant who's never been here very often. And actually, this is the chance for us to make those more personal, more bespoke and more suitable for our region, whether that's across transport, skills, economic development, the key functions of the Combined Authority, or other things that we can get into and seek from government in the future. Why is it really important? Well, because A, it's £4 billion. That's a big budget. That's a big responsibility for whoever is in charge of this. And if you follow politics at all, you might be aware of Andy Burnham, Andy Street, mayors in other parts of the country where the economic success of these roles is really visible. They are big voices. They are big, well-recognised politicians. They are people with a lot of influence, both locally and in central government, never mind having to manage a big and complicated organisation. So it's really important we pick the right person. That's why this choice, this election in just 3 weeks' time, is really, really important. Why me? Well, I think I'm the most experienced person in this contest in terms of those sectors and that the mayor will be responsible for, and in terms of this combined authority and what it means and how it works. If you're part of Newark Business Club, you might have been in the room probably getting on a year ago when I came and presented the concept of the combined authority to this group as one of the leaders who has developed and negotiated it, and explained some of the premise of what it is and what the potential is. So this has been 2.5 years of work from my perspective, helping to negotiate that deal, helping to secure the funding, and now as a council leader helping to build this organisation. So I really understand what it is, how it works, and what it needs to be in order to deliver these outcomes. I've also got a record across the areas that the mayor will be responsible for. So I'm the leader of the Transport Authority. Uniquely, I work in public transport already. I am on the board. I'm part of all of our region's major economic development projects. So where the mayor has to bring together these various and complicated organisations into that partnership, into one space to work together, I'm the only person on this panel and in this election who is part of those things and has that background and those relationships and the experience of working with those people to be able to do that. And actually, this has been about finding answers to problems. So I've fully recognised that there are all sorts of issues within our local systems and our structures. I recognise that our roads are not good enough. I recognise that our town centre needs regeneration. I recognise that there is more we can do to connect our rural areas with public transport. And that's why nearly 3 years ago now, I set off with local leaders on this journey to find these solutions, to find the funding, to find the powers to be able to take that away from Westminster for us to be able to fix it locally and to have that flexibility to tackle our priorities, not just what people in London think our priorities are. So what's the plan? I've mentioned some of them. Number one, we've got a really significant transport fund in this, a fourfold increase almost in our transport budget. I want to sort the roads out. We're doing what we can locally with very limited budgets, and you'll see in the coming weeks, the Great North Road, the A617 are all going to be resurfaced in our new improvement programme, but it's a drop in the ocean. There isn't enough money. So that's why I've spent over a year working to secure this fourfold increase in transport funding so we can invest in resurfacing and fix our roads. I want to improve our public transport networks. I recognise that around particularly Newark and Sherwood and Bassetlaw in the north of the county, some of our very rural areas. No worries, give me 10 seconds to wrap up. Simon, go on. I recognise some of these challenges, and this is the opportunity for us to fix them. We can discuss them more. I look forward to your questions, but loads of chances here for us to fix some long-running challenges that have plagued our communities in many ways, and I look forward to engaging with you and hearing your views on all of that tonight. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Now over to Matt Ralph.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Matt Ralph. I'm the independent candidate in this election. I'm currently the executive lead member for Growth, Regeneration and Local Planning at Ashfield District Council. I've also run my own business in the local area since 2009. And I sit on various boards, including the Derby, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire Local Enterprise Partnership that will be merging into the new combined authority. I've lived in Notts all my life. I know this area really well. My cousin lives up in Collingham. My aunt used to run a shelter here for vulnerable people. I know Newark and this part of Nottinghamshire really well as well. Now, I was elected back first in 2018. I'm not a career politician. I've come from business and I moved into politics because I enjoyed helping out people in my local area. But I found the power of joining an independent movement really can unlock huge potential in our area. Within Ashfield, we are one of the few independent-run councils in the whole of the UK, with 32 out of the 35 seats independent. And we've shown how successful that can be. I've led bids for government money, and I've been the most successful councillor in the whole of the UK in unlocking additional revenue, regeneration funding for the area, with now over £110 million of regeneration funding coming into Ashfield. And I want to bring that expertise for unlocking funds from government to the whole of the East Midlands as well. But I'm staying in politics also because I'm fed up with the party policies, the party approaches that are taken, with constantly whipping people into agreeing with party leaders. We've forgotten what democracy is about in the UK, about standing up in front of your peers, presenting an idea and listening to feedback. If you can't convince people of your own party your idea is good, it's not a good idea and you shouldn't plough ahead with it. And I think that is why we've been failing in the UK in delivering good policy, because leaders aren't listening. Well, I'm going to be different from that because I am a listening politician. And the important thing is I will only be listening to people from this area. I won't have party leaders in Westminster whispering in my ear to agree or disagree with any national policy. I can state what I think is the right thing for our region, whether it is good or whether it is bad, so that we can move forward. I have a track record of working really proactively and productively with politicians, though, from other parties. You know, the reason I sit on the D2N2 board is because all of the leaders of Derbyshire, of district and boroughs in Nottinghamshire voted to put me in that position. So I've shown how I can work really well with others. Now, the opportunity here is massive to transform transport in our area, business support in our area, business investment, the adult skills piece, and our housing strategy. And I have experience in all of these things. On the transport side of things, I have extensive experience with ticketing planning. I've designed and built all the online ticketing systems for Gatwick, Heathrow and Stansted Express. I've also spent 10 years of my career working in mobilising large highways asset management contracts around the UK. I'm the only candidate who actually understands how to fix potholes, for instance. And that is something which I really want to unlock. I don't want to be, unlike Ben, I don't want to be wasting this. The money, the 1.5 billion he talks about having unlocked, has come from the cancellation of HS2. We should not be using all of that money to fix the failures of previous spending from the highways authorities. We should be about achieving transformational change for transport in our area. And I want to do that through proper integrated public transport by working with all the providers of bus services, of taxis, of rails, of tram, so that we can actually join up the information of how you can make your journeys from one place to another in an integrated way and ticket it in one place as well, so that you aren't having to juggle loads of different ways of, I need to buy that and that and that. We can do it all in one place and make it an easy thing for people to adopt public transport. On the business side of things, the D2N2 Growth Hub is going to be coming into the combined authority, and I want to utilise that resource so that we can transform how we get businesses the support they need. I've been through that myself. I've sought investment for my business, I've patented products, I've launched them worldwide, and I've found what a piecemeal approach we've got in the area currently. By having that single front door through the combined authority, you can come and we can make sure that you are aware of everything that's on offer and direct you to your local authorities, to the universities, to the colleges, to the national schemes, so that you can just go and find all that information in one place. And on the housing front, we need a consolidated approach across the whole region so that we can be building the right houses that society needs, that our planet needs, so that people have got affordable houses that are affordable to run as well. And I look forward to taking your questions this evening. It's going to be an interesting debate, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. It was nice to see that we've got our timers synced there, Matt, as well. Right, now over to Helen Tamblyn-Saville.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to listen to us all speak. I'm looking forward to taking your questions later as well. My name's Helen Tamblyn-Saville, and I'm your Liberal Democrat candidate in the upcoming election for East Midlands Mayor. Before I start, just let me be clear. Liberal Democrats don't believe that this election should really be happening at all. The way the mayor has been allocated Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. It's a big region, and the needs of Derbyshire are different to Nottinghamshire. Every town, village, city all has different needs. And it puts too much power centralised in one person. Liberal Democrats believe we work from the grassroots up, not the top down. However, being pragmatic, we are having an election. This is where we are. So we have to work with what we've got, not necessarily what we'd want it to be. So just to tell you a little bit about me. I run an independent business in Retford. Until quite recently, I ran a business here in Newark. I know what it's like in the high street. I know the regeneration that our towns badly, badly need. It is tough out there. I know what pressures the businesses are under. I also used to be a local councillor myself. I was the only Liberal Democrat councillor at my council. That meant I had to work across party. I had to work collaboratively if I wanted to get things done. Politics is about compromise. It shouldn't always be about grandstanding and scoring cheap party points. I know the pressures that local governments are under, but I also know how much positivity a good local council can have to change people's lives. So democracy requires people to put themselves forward. It gives people a choice. I'm putting myself forward because I believe in a greener, cleaner, and more prosperous region. I live in Retford, it's not too far from here, and I know how badly this area, Newark, Retford, other parts of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire as well, have been impacted by recent flooding. It's devastating to homeowners, it has an impact on local business, we are still seeing the impacts, and that is a real implication of climate change. It is up to all of us to have our part in changing that. As Mayor, the first act I would do is declare a climate emergency. Some people may see that statement as virtue signalling. I don't. It's about sending a powerful statement that the environment matters, the climate is changing, we all need to play our part in that, and it makes us accountable. Moving on, the Mayor has oversight of transport. I don't drive. I'm reliant on public transport, and where there are no public transport links, hoping that somebody will give me a lift. I also work part-time in community rail, so I have more than a passing interest in public transport. We know the roads need to be brought up to scratch, and I'm sure lots of people are going to be mentioning potholes tonight. And yes, absolutely, they need to be brought up to scratch. That is something the county councils should have already done. But it's not just about roads, it's about better public transport. It's about making public transport accessible, and that's accessible to everyone, not just the cost, not just the links, but also people who are wheelchair users, those who are partially sighted, those who are deaf, etc. We have a duty to make our public transport system fit for everybody, and that's something that I don't think is being talked about enough. Better public transport links are better for people, they're better for business. Improved public transport links makes it easier for people to travel to our cities and town centres, and makes the region more attractive to potential investors, as those public transport links are already in place. People are worried about housing, particularly young people. We should be using brownfields land for housing, ensuring that new homes, including desperately needed social housing, there is not enough of that, are of a high standard, affordable and energy efficient. Buildings account for 35% of global energy consumption, and as Mayor, I would push for passive housing standards. That would help us meet the net zero goals, cuts energy bills, and in a cost of living crisis where so many of us are struggling, that can only be a good thing. I know people are going to have lots of questions about regeneration and towns in city centres. There are many empty units in our towns. Newark is no exception. As mentioned, I ran a high street business in Newark myself until quite recently. The high street is struggling throughout our towns, and I would work with local businesses and councils to find solutions. I'm not just saying this because I'm standing here in Newark, but it is a beautiful town. There is a gorgeous market, there's a gorgeous market square, there's fantastic events like Literary Festival we see every year. You have beautiful Devon Sconce Park where the runners do park run every weekend. There is so much on offer here. Yeah, just a few days ago, Game have announced that they are pulling out of the town centre. In fact, I believe they have already closed. And that is another empty unit. I have gone to time there, I wasn't quite in sync, but I look forward to hearing from you all later. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Hello, I'm Claire Ward. I'm the Labour candidate for the East Midlands Mayor. And I'm going to start by a statement of unity, which is, as best I can, at least 4 of us, and probably 5 of us, know the value of this East Midlands Mayor and what difference it can make to us in this community and across this region. And that's why this election is so important. And I'm so pleased to see so many of you here who are engaging it, because my big fear for this region is that many people won't engage and they won't understand what a transformation this could be for our communities. So I'm going to tell you first of all a little bit about myself. I'm a solicitor by qualification, no longer practicing. I was a Member of Parliament for 13 years in Watford, and I was a member of the government during the period of the Labour government from 1997 to 2010. And when I lost in 2010, I was no longer a member of Parliament. I stepped back from politics and went to do what most of you would describe as a normal job outside of politics. So I've spent mostly the last 14 years away from the political fray. Robert Jenrick just asked me, why did you come back to it? And you know the reason why I came back to it? Is because I am so frustrated by how broken our country is. And more importantly, by the lack of focus on our own region and the things that we could be doing and that untapped potential. Now, I present myself to you as somebody with over 30 years' experience, not just in politics, not just in business, where I've been for the last 13, 14 years with my own business, mostly in the pharmacy, healthcare sector, but in other places, leading businesses too, but also in the public sector. And I'm currently chair of Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust, which covers the hospitals not just here in Newark, but also Mansfield and Kingsmill. And that experience, I think, is absolutely essential, not just to bring politics into it, but to bring an understanding on the front line of business and of public service and the public sector. Because we're going to need all of those skills. And one of the pieces of experience is I was chief executive of the Institute for Collaborative Working. And we're going to need to collaborate. We're going to need to collaborate not just with the public sector, with businesses, but we're also going to need to work together across the political parties. Because if I'm elected on the 2nd of May, Ben's still going to be the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council. And so it's important to me that we are able to recognise how we work. And I won't have somebody, as you say, Matt, pulling strings from Westminster, because the people who elect me here in Nottinghamshire, in Derbyshire, will be those to whom I am accountable. It will be place first and party second. But let me also be clear that if we are heading towards a Labour government, I will be making sure that I work to get the best for this region. Now, I think we do need to talk about roads, trains and buses, and I want to make sure that we have better resurfacing of our roads. But I also want to hold to account those who have been responsible for the last few years for actually filling those potholes. And I don't think it's acceptable to simply push it to one side, say, that didn't quite happen, let's go and look at something else that's new and shiny. We need to make sure that we start that proper resurfacing of roads, that we have an integrated transport system, that we have homes for all, and especially providing for some of our most vulnerable, that we have the better jobs and the skills by working with local providers and colleges, that we link in with health and skills as well, even though it's not part of this deal, that we get an economy moving again so we can invest in those jobs, and we are able to do so, moving into new sectors, new technology, green growth, and of course, making sure that we have a greener East Midlands. Now, I know there's going to be lots of questions, and so I'm going to leave the rest to tell you more when the opportunity comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much all. Ben, can I just check, are both microphones working this side? Yeah, thank you very much. Right, so we have got the roving mic in the room. So we are going to go to questions. I'm going to ask that if you can put your hand up to ask a question, if you can wait until the microphone is in front of you before you ask that question. I know some of you have got a loud enough voice anyway, but if you can wait so that everyone in the room can hear, and then we will pass the microphone around. Michael, over to you.
So, because I've got the mic, can I ask the first question, Simon? Is that okay? It's got to be some perks. Michael Hardy, I'm the chair of the Newark Business Club Action Group. Whoever is successful on the 2nd of May would you come and meet myself and other interested parties to discuss connectivity and investment in business in Newark and its areas?
I'm looking at everyone. Is that a straight yes from everybody?
Excellent.
We've got your answer
excellent.
there.
Thank you very much.
Michael's happy.
We'll start with an easy one.
Thank you. Claire, you said you're the chair of Sherwood Forest Hospitals Trust. Could you explain and whether or not if you can actually commit to reinstating 24-hour cover at Newark Urgent Care with the growth of Newark? Grantham has had their 24-hour care reinstated, and I'm just wondering why Newark is still struggling to get that provision put back in place. Thank you.
So just to be clear, I'm not sure that's a question that everyone on the panel can answer. I know that obviously we've got the opportunity to direct that at Claire, but that's not necessarily something that everyone here can answer, I don't think. So.
First of all, obviously I'm not here today as chair of Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust. And I say that because I'm sure that if I was doing that at the same time, there would be other people who would complain. So I'm more than happy to engage with you and have that discussion. There has been obviously an engagement exercise with people, and it's also gone through the county council, so probably the only other person who would have a view on it from the overview and scrutiny committee at the...
Scrutinises external bodies, it's not our decision.
Well, yes, so you're scrutinising, but ultimately it's not our decision at Newark either, for Kingsmill either, or Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust. We are providers of the service, but ultimately we are commissioned by the integrated care services system, so the rest of the NHS, to provide those services. So from that perspective, it isn't something that Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust has control over. So I'm more than happy to have another conversation with you, but ultimately, given that it's not and it's also not within the mayoral responsibilities either.
Thank you. Michael?
Good evening. My name is Dean Hyde. I'm former mayor of Newark. My question is, Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire have a rich industrial, commercial and leisure heritage revolving around the River Trent. I'm secretary of a group whose aim is to increase the number of boaters using the Trent as a natural corridor moving north to south, which in turn could increase the economic benefit of all the communities along the river. So what is the candidate's view of the River Trent and its importance in relation to the increased tourism and economic regeneration for the future of this region?
Have we got anyone that wants to kick off on that one?
Thanks. Really good question, and it's a huge strategic asset for us in 1,000,001 ways, along with other major rivers do and others around the region, both from a visitor economy perspective and from an industrial and commercial perspective, as you've identified. So on the one hand, we've got that link to Immingham Freeport that goes up north and into the Wash. We've also got, as you go down the river, connections into the city, and there's a wider economic connection to Ratcliffe-on-Soar and other power stations and development sites that are really important to us. So part of the work I've been doing in recent years is about how we kind of master plan some of that from a commercial perspective. So where we've got those key sites, whether that's the Freeport at Ratcliffe-on-Soar, or whether it's the £20 billion clean energy investment in fusion that we've been working on up at West Burton Power Station, just to the north of here, which is arguably the biggest investment our region has ever had in terms of clean energy development, or since the M1, I think, probably in terms of numbers. Massive project. Part of master planning that site is mapping out those river connections and how our green and blue infrastructure, as well as our rail and road infrastructure, connects it all in. When it comes to the visitor economy point, again, really important. When you see all the marinas we've got along the Trent, all of the visitor attractions and people, including my dad actually, who's got his boat moored here at Newark, are up and down the Trent all the time. It's certainly an asset we can improve on. And part of the conversation, you turn to your right, and Councillor Girling here is in charge of economic development. we've been talking about recently. So we've set about a bit of a pilot project around the county council. I've asked Keith and officers to have a look at our river and green and blue connectivity and how we might work with partners. We're talking to Newark and Sherwood District Council. We're talking to other community partners within Newark to pilot some projects about how we might build on that. So really important. And the Mayor will have additional funds to tackle our visitor economy, to join these things together and invest in projects too. So hopefully the pilot's a good start, and as Mayor we can build on that.
Anyone else want to come in on that? Thank you.
So I think it's hugely important, along with the rest of our rivers and waterways across the region. I think it also forms the basis of one of the pledges that I've already made, which is to launch a Visit East Midlands campaign to really focus on what we have to offer here across Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Beautiful attractions, whether it be part of our history, our heritage, our creative economy as well. And I think there's a great opportunity with the rivers on that. I think also we can think about the part that it plays in terms of mental health and well-being and the greener economy. And I think what we saw during the pandemic is so many people having access to the waterways who were able to use that space, and we want to be able to see more resources going into it to encourage that active travel, people being able to use the canal paths and the waterways and the rivers to be able to travel across our region in different ways. And I think that's a great value. I think we should also investigate the possibility of extending the possibility for homes. You know, we do know that there's canal boats, there's lots of people who have their permanent homes on them, not just leisure boats. And I think that there may be places across our region where there's an opportunity to develop that further.
Thank you.
It's a great question, and a question we haven't been asked so far on the campaign trail. Whilst I was at university, I actually lived on a narrow boat. I made that decision to get around all the different fees I was paying at the time, being squashed, and my partner and I decided we would get on board the Jolly Thresher, as she was called, at Nottingham Castle Marina, and we had a fantastic time. So absolutely, this is something I care about. Our canals and riverways, first of all, I'll be using my voice as Mayor to ask our government to stop pumping shite into them. That's the first thing. Yes, I can speak French. Active travel is a huge part of my plan, coming in doing a land spatial plan, making sure that we have a East Midlands-wide regional plan for where we are going to be regenerating, where we're going to be building homes, where our transport fits into all of that. This microphone seems a little bit dodgy. And so that's really important. Oh, wow, that's so much better. And that will help phenomenally with our local tourism. Getting people around our region easily, whether it be through active travel, through our public transport systems, helps local businesses, small and micro, to thrive. I've also made a really big point throughout this campaign about public toilets and fountains. It's a really small thing, but whether it be along our canals or whether it be in our Peak National Park or in other parts of our region, it really facilitates people getting around, even on our high streets, encouraging people to get out and have access to facilities. That's essentially my plan, calling out the government on its attitude towards our rivers, cleaning up our spaces, ensuring we have wild spaces that are allowed to thrive, that people can use for their physical and mental health. Ensuring that people have the right to roam is really important as well, and something I will be lobbying government for whenever we are stopped from using our spaces, our land, and ensuring that local tourism is allowed to thrive. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think tourism around waterways is a hugely important thing and something I support massively. I've been on many a canal and river holiday in my time. I also, in my youth, when I actually was a little fitter, I took part in canal restoration holidays as well. So getting people out into those spaces is really important to me. But I completely agree with Frank, and I was going to raise the point as well about water quality. I think any MP that has supported the government in not tightening those regimes should hold their head in shame, really, because we have within Ashfield the Kingsmill Reservoir, which is a brilliant water sport activity place, but it can't be used after any heavy rainfall because of the outspill from the sewage farm that's just upstream from it. And it is ridiculous that in this modern day and age that we are in this position. And I think it's fair to say that I don't think anyone can look at the current picture of the situation with water or many other utilities for that matter and say that privatisation has worked. It has failed us as a nation. But specifically on the point of tourism, again, like many others have talked about, we need to build a cohesive picture of the visitor offer across its entire region so that people can see what a fantastic place this is to come, spend time, spend their money in our local economy so that we can build that tourism economy so much more than what we've already got. It's interesting talking to the Derbyshire Dales, for instance. They have massive problems of people coming in for one day and bringing their packed lunch and not spending money. And I'm sure there will be situations around here where that's the same. We need to get people staying and spending money in bars, restaurants, hotels, tourist destinations. So yeah, fully on board with doing more with the assets that we've got on our doorstep.
Thank you. Just to kick off, Frank, I have to say I'm immensely jealous that you spent time on a narrowboat. Is that something my husband and I talked about once and never got to do? And yeah, what a great thing. I imagine it was, although perhaps not so much with sewage and water at the moment. Dean, that's a really, really great question. When I think of the waterways, the rivers, the canals, I tend to associate them with mental well-being, which I know Claire touched on then. I run, I walk, and I love doing that along our waterways. I just find it very peaceful. I've struggled with my mental health in the past, and I think a lot of people find that a very peaceful environment. So I was pleased to hear that mention of mental well-being. That's something that I associate. And I'm going to be honest, as part of this campaign, I'm very keen on active travel. As I said, I don't drive. I have to get around on my own 2 feet or use public transport. I'm going to be honest, using the waterways as a way of getting around is not something that I'd actually really considered. Now that you mention it, it seems immensely obvious. We have the River Trent, as you've mentioned. We have the Chesterfield Canal. So that is really something that we should be considering as a way of moving people around, boosting tourism, alternative means of transport. Using it to boost people's mental well-being, it can only be a good thing all round. So I appreciate I'm being a bit vague, but I'm going to take that away and do a bit more thinking about that. And thank you very much for raising it. Certainly, it ties into tourism, it ties into well-being, and it's something that I think perhaps we should be considering more as part of active travel. So thank you very much for raising that.
Thank you very much. Right, Michael is on the move.
Good evening all, my name is Marcus Jones. It's a question which follows on from mentioning the Trent there, and East Midlands is beautiful when it's not flooded. And when you look at the last 6 months and what the regions had to put up with, the housing, the businesses, and this isn't a county council thing, this is a council thing where people decide to spend money or not. My question is to the panel, what have you done over the last 6 months to visit the businesses and talk to those that have been really affected, like myself, in Newark, along the 46, the Trent, Derbyshire side, the Derwent? And what infrastructure are you going to bring into this region to protect the homes that some of you have said you're going to build on brownfield sites, which we know are risk if you don't have correct planning in place? Some of you are going to build on green belt, which is part of your national policy. So for me, this is about what's going on in the East Midlands. We've seen it over the news. We've seen it with our own eyes driving down the roads. Farming's affected, housing's affected, businesses are affected. But my 2 questions. Have you been out to those businesses? Have you talked to people? And what are you going to do about it? And the second part of that question is, what infrastructure are you going to bring? And as part of that, would you consider a pool RAIA system which would support those who don't have insurance?
Thank you. Right, let's go the other way this time.
Thank you, and that's a really, really important point to raise. We have seen the state of the flooding here in Newark. I live in Retford. October last year, we were really badly impacted, having been badly impacted in 2019 as well, where I spent a lot of time in my wellies helping residents with sandbags. I was fortunate, my business did not flood in Retford in October, but I'm not going to lie, the panic was there, everything came up off the floor. The waters did stop just a few metres from where I'm located. Had the predicted surge come, I don't know what would have happened. So as I stand here now, I may not have spoken with businesses directly in Newark. I would be very, very happy to. While my business did not flood, I did experience that fear, and certainly we did suffer from the impact of people not coming into town, people not being able to travel, and it does have that impact on business as well. When people can't get to you because of that, one of the long-term effects is local businesses suffer. So infrastructure, what we would do, etc. I did mention building on brownfield land earlier. But it's also very important that floodplains are retained. We should not be building on floodplains. That happens all too often. We know that there are not enough flood defences in place, and we know that there's always the ongoing arguments of, work cost and things like that, but that doesn't help the people who are experiencing, these damages. People have their homes damaged, people have suffered the impact to their businesses. So as a business owner, as a candidate, I can definitely stand here and say that I would certainly want to speak with local businesses and be a voice to the Environmental Agency and other authorities to see what we can do. Floodplains must be retained. We shouldn't be building on floodplains. We also had the question about support for businesses who do not have insurance. So some people may be aware, I know some homeowners have suffered this. If you are in areas that flood, sometimes it's very, very difficult to get insurance. And then you're stuck because you can get this through no fault of your own, and then you can suffer immense damage. And I would like to see better support for businesses to help them financially bounce back, put defences in place, etc. You shouldn't suffer if you can't get insurance for flooding because of the area you're in. And this is happening because of the changing climate, and that's why we really, really need to make the environmental impact on every decision. We really need to consider the environment with every decision made here in the region. Thank you.
Yeah, at the initial hustings that were held in Nottingham College, we were asked the question of what we felt was the biggest risk that faced the East Midlands. I was the only candidate who stated climate change was the major risk, because the longer we take to deal with this situation, the more expensive it's going to be, the more disruptive it's going to be for businesses, for individuals. I haven't been out to businesses around here because I'll be honest, I've been up to my eyeballs dealing with people in my local area who were impacted as well. I was out in my wellies as well when it was the height of it, helping stack sandbags around people's houses to stop them being flooded, or at least reduce the impacts that are already there. There are various things that I'm doing locally within Ashfield around projects to try and alleviate floods issues that we've got there already. But fundamentally, we need to be playing our part seriously within the East Midlands and cracking on with building houses that don't exacerbate this problem. I'm really keen. One thing that very rarely gets talked about in green initiatives is rainwater harvesting in houses. The more we can do in water attenuation directly at homes, the more we're going to be stopping water flowing out elsewhere that's caused flooding. But there is so much more about retrofit that I'm not going to be able to get into in 2 minutes. But there is I've got plans around how we unlock spending, significant spending into the social housing space from councils, so that we can then kickstart businesses in the area that are doing significant retrofit for both the social housing, but then have the capacity for be doing that for private housing and private businesses as well, so that we can actually start seriously talking about this. Because I know we talk about things like the Step Fusion project, hugely important project, but it's decades away from delivery. We've got to get on with things here and now that have tangible impacts here and now. Otherwise, it's going to be too late to have the impacts that we need to stop this from getting worse. In terms of the insurance, very quickly, I don't know enough about the situation. I want to come and talk to you because you clearly know more about the situation that businesses are facing, so that we can figure out the right way of solving that for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's very clear that the consequences of climate change are this repeated flooding, and the government and many of our councils have simply not been in a position to prepare adequately to protect those businesses, but also those residents. And we're going to continue to see that unless we, A, invest better in flood defences. And this is a region which has had significantly lower funding on flood defences than other regions, despite how much we've suffered right across the region. So I've certainly been out in Newark, along talking to the Canal and River Trust and along the canal and the Trent to see some of that damage and see some of those things, not necessarily getting a chance to talk to businesses in Newark, but I have been to businesses in other places, including going to visit the Museum of Making in Derby, which suffered terribly as a result of that most recent flooding. And I'm very keen to continue that engagement with businesses. But if we're going to solve the problems longer term, we have to be thinking about the responsibilities that the Mayor and the Combined County Authority will have in respect of climate change and helping to reach net zero. And that's a key part of what I want to be able to do to make this a much greener East Midlands, but also one that's sustainable for the longer term for its residents and for its businesses. We also need to be thinking about the homes. And the reality is that we are going to have to adapt and find different ways of building homes, whether it be on brownfield sites, unlocking different land. We will have to think about the way in which we build those homes to protect not just those homes, but other communities as well. Because we need affordable homes. We need more homes. We need to be in a position where our young people don't have to move elsewhere or simply cannot get homes within their own region because they cannot afford to do so. And one of the ways in which we can unlock that technology and thinking is to work with our universities on innovation about the building of homes and how they are built to make sure that we are preparing for that future in respect of defence and flooding. You asked about insurance. This is certainly something which I know has been going and a discussion in government. And I think the government ultimately, whichever political colour, government needs to set that standard by engaging with the insurance industry and making sure that it stands behind those who simply cannot get levels of insurance, because it's not right that you cannot control sometimes what is now happening as a result of climate change. And those businesses and residents shouldn't continually go through this every year in some cases now, let alone every couple of years.
Every single time I stand and debate with politicians, they try their best to sound like me, to sound like the Green Party. They mention climate change, they give you a little bit of green. Let's just remember who's been in government, whether it would be Claire and Tony Blair's government, or whether it be Ben and well, I can't go through all the prime ministers in the 2 minutes I've got. The parties here have created this problem. And so if you want green, if you want sustainable thinking, then you have to vote for it. And don't fall for the trap, the little bit of green that they offer on the side, that they try to offer you to get you to vote for the rest of their hideous policies. Actually go full throttle. Vote for what you believe in. And if we take some of their votes, then maybe they'll wake up. Maybe they will realise that they have to take this seriously and that they have to act. And as your mayor, I will make sure, as I said before, we have a proper land spatial plan that thinks about the places we're rewilding, because having wild spaces soaks up our water. It deals with that naturally. We can have natural solutions to these problems. Concrete and tarmac, with more concrete and tarmac and sandbags around the edge, doesn't solve the problem. It's never going to solve the problem. We have to think differently about this. And so we have to think differently when we're building homes, how we're building them, making sure we're building sustainably and with thought. In terms of your question of supporting businesses, where I'm a councillor in Wingerworth, the flooding we had was incredibly damaging for people's homes. And I saw water coming into people's homes, filling up their front rooms and causing absolute devastation. The solution to that was people on the ground, people in the community coming out and helping out. That's how we got through that, because some people couldn't afford to do anything else, and that is a massive shame. And so as your mayor, I'll make sure that there are grants for change, grants that enable businesses to transition, whether that be digitally, whether that be sustainably, or whether that be to retrofit properly. And if they are affected by flooding, those same grants will be available as well, because it's really important that we support local businesses first. I'll speak up on this issue. I'm not going to be silenced. I'm not going to be a mayor that's standing there and serving Westminster. I am a free voice who will stand up for you, and I will continue to do that, as I have done today, as I have done in the past. Thank you very much, Marcus, for your question.
Hi, Marcus. Thanks for the question. You'll find this trend, I think, throughout the questions this evening, that it's very easy to stand here and talk about what the problems are and talk about how you will make them better. You'll find, I think, consistently that I'm the only one who can tell you how we might go about doing those things. And Marcus, forgive me, I'm going to buck the trend and answer your actual questions. Yes, I have spoken to businesses around the region. You and I have spoken about flooding before, and I know your business has had tens of millions of pounds of impact, hugely, hugely significant on yours and many other businesses around our region. So yes, I've spoken with businesses in Derby. I've met with residents in Retford. I've met with businesses and community groups who have been flooded in Newark and Sherwood here. And this morning I was talking to sports and community clubs in Belper, where they were affected by flooding, and the fact that they aren't covered by those flood RE insurance schemes, they struggle to get insurance, and what we do about that. So it's something I've been really, really engaged in. Would you support additional infrastructure? Yes, and actually we're part of the group, part of the organisation, the various organisations that are helping to deliver that. The many millions of pounds investment we've put into Southwell, for example, or Southwell, depending on which part of the county you're from, to protect against flooding in that village very successfully over recent years. Many, many millions of pounds of investment. The work we've done in Sutton-on-Trent, various parts of Newark and Sherwood to help protect our communities. So yes, we're delivering it. It's important that if we're going to tackle this, you understand flooding, how it works, the difference between the flash flooding that impacts on Mansfield and Ashfield, for example, and the river flooding that then affects our Trent side communities days later as that water makes its way into the river courses. We can tackle both of those things. And again, in my Mansfield constituency I currently represent, we've got the biggest pilot project anywhere in the country, anywhere in Europe actually, of tackling flash flooding with urban drainage, breaking up the concrete, and how we start to learn about the right ways to go about that. So we're really leading the way here actually in Nottinghamshire in terms of tackling some of these things. What are the answers? I think the mayor has the ability to seek further powers from government, and I'd like to bring some of those Environment Agency powers into this tent. This is an incredibly complicated, and you'll see another theme here tonight. Lots of these services are part of incredibly complicated partnerships where you're trying to pull together all these organisations who ultimately have their budgets and their things to protect. The mayor is the chairman of a partnership about bringing these things together under shared planning and strategy. This is a good example. Often the Environment Agency are not suitably accountable. They don't put funding in the places that we locally would want them, and they're not certainly democratically accountable, where we as local elected representatives would want to see change, they want to see something else. It's very difficult to see that publicly and to hold them to account. So I want to bring those powers together in one place to help shift that focus to prevention and resilience, and the mayor will also have infrastructure funding to support that. And on your final question on flood RE, actually it was one of the really interesting conversations I had with sports clubs in Belper this morning. It's easy again to say I will lobby government for, but the mayor is a leader and has the clout to deliver things. I've already started the conversation just this morning with insurers about the opportunity of a regional flood RE scheme that we could lead and whether they would engage with us on that concept. It's not just go to government and say, will you do, but let's lead the way on that. Let's deliver it and make them roll it out nationally. That should be the way that we deliver it.
Thank you again very much for that question. Obviously, a lot of passionate answers around that and thoughts in the room. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. We've got quite a lot of hands going up, so I am trying to get across as many different areas. So first question is going to be on finance, and then we're going to move on to transport with a couple of ladies. So
thank you.
I am trying to get to as many people as possible.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Roy Fairbairn. I'm a parish councillor for Balderton. 2 quick points. Could we ask for quicker answers from the panel, please, so more questions can be answered? Secondly, from the back here, the map looks very good. Looks like a butterfly. How do the candidates see that butterfly continuing to fly? It needs its wings. I'm looking at the east side of the map, the west side of the map, very rural areas, and we've got a central industrial conurbation running down the middle. Unfortunately, butterflies produce eggs. How do we stop the butterfly just turning into a caterpillar and all the money's being concentrated down the M1 corridor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So just for what we'll do then is we'll try and keep those answers from now to 60 seconds, each person, if that's okay, to try and get some more answers in before that fire alarm test goes off later on. Right, let's pass that on to Ben first.
Yeah, so I think the important thing to recognise in all of this, and it's an absolutely very good and important question that many people ask, it's a big region. It's a very diverse region in terms of rural and urban, and historically lots of people in the north of the county have felt, as I have felt, that all the investment goes into the cities and you don't see a great deal out of it here. You don't want to be on the edge, right? In reality, most of the decisions, many of the decisions that the mayor will be responsible for are things that are currently decided in London. And that's the opportunity for us, where actually we are taking decisions closer to our local communities. And just because this is a regional organisation doesn't mean it has to have one single regional plan. It's really important actually that we're able to be as local as possible to include local councils and stakeholders and plan specifically for our communities. The way that I've described this in the past is that actually collectively we all look to central government, we look at what pots of funding are available, and we try and find ways to make what we deliver locally fit those pots of funding, whereas this is a chance for us actually to look at our community and to say what does our community need, and therefore how do we build an organisation with these powers that delivers what our community needs. And that, I think, is the real positive premise of this. That means we can be really local in what we do.
Thank you. Yes, I represent a local ward and that's where I've lived my entire life. So it's really important to me, and that's why I came out straight away and committed to keeping the Mayor's office in Chesterfield. I think it's really important that we don't concentrate all of our power in Nottingham and Derby. The only candidates committed to doing that, probably not what you want to hear here in Newark, but it's about keeping our power elsewhere and making sure that the cities don't suck everything in. Connectivity is really important, digitally and with buses. You will hear the other candidates offer us scrap meat about on-demand services for buses. That's just a way of them cutting services and giving you a reduced amount of public transport. That can't be accepted. We have to have a better service for our rural communities. And citizens' assemblies are really important. So we have a diverse range of people feeding into the Mayor's office. We don't want someone who's moved a Mayor's office into the city and is focusing all of their attention on the economic prosperity of that place. It's about getting a diverse range of voices from our farming communities. And across, that's a minute.
That worked. Thank you. No, appreciate that.
So I've lived near Ollerton for nearly 12 years now, and I feel it's a community that's been left behind. And there are many left behind communities right across Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And that's what we've got to listen to make sure that we actually start to invest into those local communities. Many of them are small towns, small communities. We need to be thinking about the connectivity, making sure that we've got opportunities for the young people there and others to be able to get to the skills, to the work that will exist, not just on the M1 corridor, not just on those main areas, though there will be more work and more jobs and more opportunity there. But we also have to be able to invest in those local towns and communities. And we can do that as well, from my perspective, as Mayor, not just creating a huge organisation of this new combined county authority, but working with our district and borough councils who already know their communities and already have resources and input into their local areas. And we'll make sure that we are listening, above all, to what our residents want.
So I was part of the Nottinghamshire committee that was developing the devolution deal, and we were promised from early doors that districts and boroughs would be heavily involved. In the end, Ben and his colleagues excluded us from the final deal. So it is actually only the county councils and the city councils that are constituent members of the combined authority. And for me, that is a massive missed opportunity, because we've got across this region local decision makers who know our areas the best, and we need to be using that resource. I've experienced when bidding for money from government that it comes with strings attached of saying, this is how we think you need to do things locally. Well, I think that's showing a massive lack of trust in locally elected representatives that I will not repeat. I will be making sure that there is a balance of projects that are the big strategic things across the region, but also making sure that we push funding down to local decision makers so that they can make the right choices about the right things in your area, so that we are sharing this around appropriately across the entire patch.
Thank you. That's a really good question. Firstly, I want to mention this butterfly effect. Connectivity. It's really difficult to travel east to west and vice versa across the region. And with the Mayor having responsibility for transport, that is something that we definitely need to work on and improve on so people can move across the region. It opens up training and job opportunities, makes it easier for young people to travel around. So firstly, that east to west connectivity has got to be improved. Secondly, as mentioned, I own a local business. Local towns have different needs to the cities. We need to be working with local councils, local businesses, local stakeholders on, they know their areas. You know Newark better than I do. People in Glossop know the village of Glossop better than I do. It's important as Mayor to engage with those local business owners, those councils, to work on what's best for their area and how we can really ensure that they get their fair deal. Thank you very much.
Hi, Carrie Young here. I'd like to make a question to all of you, because you've all made loads and loads of promises today and tonight, but I'm fed up. I don't know who to vote for. I'm like many members of the public, don't know what we're doing at the moment as far as this is concerned, but I will like to tell you a few facts. First of all, Doncaster Airport is on the verge of closing. East Midlands Airport is passenger services. The railways in Derby are basically crumbling as far as manufacturing is concerned. And I am really, really proud to be part of Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood, wherever I go around the world. If I say I live in Nottinghamshire, they say Robin Hood to me. We cannot afford to sit here much longer, watch our roads crumble, not have a decent rail service, not have decent airports, and watch as manufacturing goes through, crumbles totally. I am so fed up at the moment with what's going on in this country. I cannot tell you, Ben, how I feel at the moment. I am livid. We've had too many prime ministers, too much going on in this country, and the first person who comes up with a sensible suggestion on how we're going to make some investments, I might vote for. Thank you.
Was there a question to answer on that one?
Are we going to put some investments into the roads and railways?
So specifically roads and railways?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely, and I take your point entirely, although I think we've found a rescue package for Doncaster Airport now, which is good. East Midlands is the biggest cargo airport, actually, in the country, and that's a huge asset for us as well. We've got a lot going for us, a lot of potential, and I think in answer to your question about how are we going to invest, I think I'm the only one here who can say that I've been working on those solutions for quite a while, because this combined authority actually is part of the solution. This is how we bring £4 billion of additional investment into our region. This is how we bring powers down from central government to our areas so we can make local decisions and deliver on major projects. And over the last 12, 18 months, I can point to 8 or 9 different areas of that butterfly, which I've not heard before and I like. I've been talking about the heart, which is good as well. But actually, I can point to areas of that map that we are already working on major investment projects in clean energy, in manufacturing, in engineering, and things that the Mayor can bring about to invest in, to create jobs, to create opportunities, and to invest in our infrastructure. So actually, I do think some of the answers are there. I think the Combined Authority presents us with some of those answers, and that is a fundamental change to the way that we govern our region that means we can bring in more investment and create some of the opportunities that you are and I are very desperate to see.
I join you in being sick to the back teeth of what we've seen over the last 14 years. It's terrible, the state of this country. I'm fed up, and that's why I'm standing to be mayor. I did not want to get involved in politics. That was not what I wanted to do. I was going to go and study television and radio production at university. I decided that society was in such a state that I would have to go and study politics and international relations and come here and represent my community and change something, because the Conservatives have slashed every single service that our communities have had over the last 14 years, and Labour are now coming in and offering us nothing at all. They've slashed their green investment promise nationally, and they're sitting on the fence with everything. That is not good enough. We have to offer hope, offer prosperity, and I will do that through a green industrial revolution, putting us on the map, making our manufacturers have a purpose, making our communities feel welcomed and able to thrive. It is so important that we have change to business as usual. It cannot go on any longer. This country is in the bin. Everything has been sold off, sent abroad, and that cannot continue. If you elect any of those sat beside me, blue or red, it will continue, and it can't.
You're absolutely right. It's the reason why I've come back into politics, because I'm sick of this, and I'm sick in the way in which the government has treated us, the Tories have behaved, and I'm afraid Ben has been part of that. So let's not pretend for a moment that he hasn't. But in terms of Doncaster Airport, it isn't over here that have been trying to save Doncaster Airport. It's the Labour mayor in Sheffield who has done the initial deal to make that happen, and I've been working with him in those to discuss what else we could do together. And in terms of manufacturing, Alstom, it's an absolute disgrace that the future of rail manufacturing in this country is on the brink, with thousands of jobs being lost over in Derby, people being put on the dole and never having the opportunity to get back into that industry. And where are the minister's voices? Where's the transport minister? Where's Ben's voice on any of this? Absolutely silent. And we should worry about the future of rail industry and the skills, the specialist skills as a result of that. And as far as making clear how we bring people into this region and make the most of it, that's why I want to launch a Visit East Midlands. So the future is about voting Labour, now and in the general election.
So I don't disagree with the assessment of where things are at. There are some dreadful stories about what is happening. But you asked the question of what are we actually going to do about it? Well, I can point to things I'm already doing in Ashfield as part of the project, the programme of £110 million of investment there. You know, we're building the automated distribution and manufacturing centre that's going to be allowing businesses across the entire region to understand how they can become more productive so that they can save costs, but also see more reshoring of jobs back from the Far East back to the East Midlands so that we can become the manufacturing powerhouse we should be. You know, we are investing in skills as well. We've got things like the new Sherwood Observatory Planetarium and Science Discovery Centre that's going to be about inspiring kids from across the entire patch, again, about into STEM subjects and wanting them to become the next engineers and scientists of the next generation. You know, so I definitely can't do the justice in 1 minute of everything that I'm already doing, but I want to bring that same thinking to the whole region so that we can get things properly moving in the East Midlands.
I think it's fair to say that most people are pretty angry right now. We've heard the anger about the roads, for instance. Whoever is elected, it's unfortunate they are going to have to spend so much money on sorting the roads out. They should already have been sorted out by the county councils. Moving on to what we would, do for the area. The East Midlands is in this position where we can transition into a new green economy. We need to provide funding, strategic support and training to create green jobs, including in manufacturing. I'm talking about housing for a moment. 80% of national housing stock is going to need green retrofitting in the next 20 years. That includes here in the East Midlands. We should start on that now, using local manufacturers, local installers, boosting our local economy to help our homes and houses become more green, moving towards our net zero target while creating those green jobs. Thank you.
I'm just looking around the room and obviously appreciating the time. I think there is obviously other questions in the room. Are candidates all right for time if we ask another couple of questions? Is that okay? Okay.
Did start late.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. I'm Barbara, and my question is around public transport and specifically in relation to, and I am using Newark Hospital as the example, where we're seeing the local health facilities close or shorten their hours, GP appointments are harder to get. It means people are needing to travel further. They're needing to travel from Newark to Kingsmill or to Nottingham. And take your choice in Nottingham of which hospital you want to try. But therefore we're seeing A&Es closing their doors. Sorry, we're full. You have to try this other hospital. So for people who have a car and they've got someone who can drive them if they're the one who's ill or injured and can't drive themselves, that's fine. I can go, oh, Newark's full, even though it's 8 p.m. and then meant to be open till 10 p.m. I'll drive my husband to Mansfield. Oh no, Kingsmill, they're full. Got to go to Nottingham. I have a car, I can afford petrol, that's fine. For people who can't, for people who are relying on public transport, for people who live on the wrong side of Newark and need to get to Newark Hospital and need to take more than one bus to get there, how are you going to tackle, not just in Newark, I'm obviously using Newark as an example, but across the region, how are you going to make public transport accessible to people 24/7 who need to access the NHS, wherever that may be, across the region? Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
That is a really, really excellent question. And actually, personally, part of the reason my candidacy was quite late to declare was back in February, my daughter was really, really unwell and did end up in hospital, and it was all very stressful. I don't drive. Had my husband not been able to drive her there, we would have had a bit of a problem. We know there are long, long waits for ambulances at the moment. If it's an emergency and you need one, you can be waiting 10, 11, 12 hours, which is just absolutely horrifying. So I would say it's absolutely essential that there's 24/7 public transport or some form of transport to hospitals for when people need them. I recognise perhaps in some areas it's not practical, for instance, to run buses, every 5 minutes through the night, etc. But certainly there should be something in place, whether it's a staggered bus service through the night, or perhaps, I don't know, maybe there's even scope for some kind of taxi service which is subsidised or free of charge. That's certainly something that I would be keen to investigate, because you're absolutely right. We should be able to access our hospitals. We don't get ill 9 till 5. We need to get there 24/7. That's an excellent question, and it's something that should definitely be considered and looked at very, very carefully. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there are problems that we've got in our public services that we can't expect the transport system to fully fix. We need to actually fix our NHS, and the current government is definitely not going to do that. So I'm hopeful that whatever government comes in next, that we do something serious about fixing that. But in terms of actually tackling the problem here and now, I'm a big fan of looking at greater use of on-demand services, both taxi but also taxi buses. I know Frank hates taxi buses, but I think done well, there are huge numbers of case studies of where they work fantastically well. Because for more rural areas with less frequent services, it just doesn't make sense to make sure there is a large bus constantly driving around, most of the time empty. On-demand services done well also open up villages that aren't currently served, because it doesn't make sense to run a scheduled service, but you can send an on-demand service there. So I think there is a big thing around the balance of scheduled services, but also on-demand services where the demand isn't there all the time. And I think overnight is an ideal example of that.
So I think we need to fix the bigger problems in our NHS, and we need to think often it's not just about the emergency appointments, it's the regular routine ones, and there's lots of those take place at Newark, indeed lots of other hospitals, but at Newark in terms of the additional facilities that are taking place and services there. And I think there are different ways that we can address that. I do support the idea of on-demand if we get them right. But one of the challenges that we've already got with the on-demand services here is they're not necessarily connected into Newark. So if you live on the routes that the on-demand is serving of Ollerton and Tuxford and Sutton as well, coming down, they will drop, that on-demand will drop you either at the railway station or the bus station. And we all know it's a bit of a walk from there to the hospital. So we need to be much smarter about the way in which we connect up those integrated services. That's the point of that level of integration. But it's also about listening and understanding who your partners are in the community so that we know where people need to be and getting those through. And the final thing is, do you know, we need to make sure that we've got good services in those communities too, whether it's about pharmacies and access to pharmacies who are doing many more services that can support people, as well as using digital to access healthcare too.
Unfortunately, the health service is out of our remit, but I'll definitely be a strong voice for our region and highlight those problems wherever they are. On a personal level, my dad has MS, and he therefore cannot drive and had to give up his car. Where he lives, the bus stop isn't even accessible. He has to cross a busy main road, head down a steep ramp to get to just a stick in a grass verge. That's not enough. We need decent bus stops. We need accessible transport. I was with My Sight in Nottingham, a charity which advocates for the partially sighted and blind. I went through Nottingham city centre wearing simulation goggles and saw just how difficult it is to access our trams as a person without full vision. It is ridiculous. So we'll have publicly controlled buses because our bus services, our public transport, should be accountable to democratically elected leaders. They've been privatised. So at the moment, if you come to me with a problem, or to Ben or to Claire, what can we do? We can do the same as you. We can send an email. We can go and sit in a room with Trent Barton. It's not enough. We need to have oversight and control to improve those services for you. To be modern, sustainable, affordable, linked up with our trains and our active travel routes. What we've got at the moment is a disgrace. We are an absolute outlier in Europe for this, and it needs to improve now.
Thank you. And it's a really important question, and a really key part of the Mayor's remit is delivering improved public transport, something I've recognised a long time ago, and as I've said, been working for 18 months to secure a fourfold increase in transport funding. And fundamentally, that's the biggest challenge. We've got these huge pressures on our public services for a variety of reasons, huge demand in social care, things that drag money away from some of those services like our buses and like our roads. But this transport funding means that we can then invest very, very significantly in our transport infrastructure. So despite those pressures, actually working as leader of the Transport Authority currently, we've got a decent record under those pressures, where the city are removing their Medilink service and some of those connections. We still have some of the highest level of transport investment anywhere in the UK from a local authority. So we're working hard in difficult circumstances, but that's why this funding is really important. We're piloting currently integrated ticketing here in Newark, so you can get on any service and be able to get around with one ticket, whoever runs the service. Personally, I don't care who runs the service. I just want it to work. And the record around franchising shows that actually it's going to take 8 years. It's taken Andy Burnham to do that in Manchester. I want to see results much quicker than that. But the Mayor will have opportunities through that funding and through that threat of franchising perhaps in the future to be able to hold our bus companies to account and deliver. We're also, talks about on-demand transport. I'm currently rolling out on-demand transport across our region to be able to connect our rural areas, our villages, into our towns, into transport connections, into our key services. That's something that is easy, as I say, to say we should do more of, but I am currently actually doing, and this really significant increase in transport funding will help us to do that more and bigger and faster and deliver a better network in the future.
Thank you. I think, are we going to go for one question and then 60 seconds round up from the candidates?
I think probably we've got about 20 more questions, so we could go on all night. So
yeah, no, I appreciate the timing though. Let's go with, if we're happy for another question at the moment, and then we'll do summaries.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jackie Inslee. I'm Chief Officer for Citizens Advice Central Nottinghamshire. We cover Ashfield, Newark and Sherwood and Broxtowe. I just wondered how the candidates will view the voluntary sector within the new combined authority. As charitable organisations, we deliver lots of valuable services across the whole of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire as a whole, as a voluntary sector. I just wondered how we will fit into this new combined authority.
Yeah, massively important. And as leader of the County Council, one of the things we've tried to shift in terms of our mantra and our culture is to be a facilitator rather than somebody who piles in and does stuff to people. I am the first to recognise, my background is in youth work and young people, the benefit of community-led services and charitably-led services, actually in many, many cases, who are better placed to deliver services than the council. And so the way we're trying to change our approach within Nottinghamshire has been about how we move from coming in and doing stuff and duplicating often, or doing a more expensive and less effective version of what you guys do in the voluntary sector. But actually, how do we help you to deliver more? How do we help you to be more sustainable? That's a long-term cultural shift for an organisation that typically wants to be very hands-on. But actually, when we build that culture within the Mayor's office, we can do that. We can work with partners. It's about being an umbrella and a facilitator and a funder and a supporter of stuff that's already happening, not coming in and trying to duplicate. So one thing I want to do is create, just as we've got advisory groups around transport and skills, I want a community-based group that can feed into this all the time. And I've already started a conversation about some of that, 5 seconds, around sport in particular, which I'm really passionate about, and the preventative impact of that for young people and keeping people out of care, with private sector funding to help with that. So we've got a record, again, of working in this space, delivering funding and working with voluntary partners.
It's a fantastic question, and essentially I'm a volunteer here at the moment. I understand what it's like to be on the ground trying to deliver change for people. That's what I'm here to do, and that's what I've been trying to do over the last few years. And so I have a huge amount of understanding for what you're doing and compassion. And as your mayor, I'd want to offer serious leadership for people like yourself, partners across the region, and make sure that you're at the table. It's not just businesses that we're here to serve, it's our voluntary sector, and it's to make sure that we are delivering funding where that isn't available. We're demanding it from government. We're making sure that our councils are well serviced to be able to provide as well, and making sure that we're delivering grants that are bureaucracy-free, that can be given directly to our charities, our volunteer services, to make sure that those services are being delivered well for people, because we know how much people rely on them, particularly given the economic chaos that we've been through over the last 15 years, the slashing of funding, the absolute crisis that households have been plunged into. People are more reliant than ever, and it's really important that we stand up for them and people like yourselves who are delivering those services.
Thank you.
I don't know what we would do without the third sector, and we ought to be using them even more, working in partnership, because public sector cannot deliver all of the things that need to do, and there's so many demands upon you. And so I'm very keen to continue to work in partnership with that third sector. I also want to get people involved to help some of our most vulnerable. It's why I've already started that discussion around homelessness, and I'll have a Mayor's task force to actually tackle the homelessness that we see across our cities and in our communities. And I brought in Baroness Louise Casey, an expert in this, to work with me already to engage those local charities. But I want to work with the third sector in terms of providing skills as well, because you can often reach people that the colleges cannot reach, and they're often the most difficult people to get back into work to support with those additional skills, and we need to resource you appropriately to do so.
Yeah, fantastic question. It's an area I care about massively within Ashfield. Huge number of our projects are being delivered with the voluntary sector. I was also down in Derby City on Wednesday at a networking event for charities there. I also, I don't know whether anyone saw the DIY SOS last year at the Treetopped Hospice in Derbyshire. If you remember the wooden tree, I designed and built that wooden tree on that programme. It's an enormously important sector for us. But in terms of what the mayor can do, the thing we need to be doing is using the convening powers of the mayor to bring together that voluntary sector and help understand where there are efficiencies of scale, where you can work better together rather than looking at duplication. We can use that central hub function to make sure that you are delivering so much that you already are, but in as efficient way as possible. And so as mayor, I would absolutely be engaging the entire voluntary sector, making sure you're feeding into the policies that we're doing, the projects that we're doing, but also how we can help you back in return as well.
Thank you very much. I mentioned earlier about a grassroots up approach, not top down, and this is exactly what I mean. I would want to engage with the voluntary sector. What you do is so important. As has been mentioned, you You know how to reach people. You have the expertise on how to reach and support the most vulnerable in our society. The BCVS does a lot of work locally in Bassett Law and Bolsover, and I know that they reach people that sometimes go under the radar. They get missed, and they offer vital lifelines. So I would want to work in partnership, support you with what you do, see how we can best support. You don't want to duplicate work. You don't want to come in and try to do better something that has already been done really, really well. So I would want to engage and work in partnership with you, not look to duplicate or replace the fantastic work that's been delivered by the experts who really do understand what's happening on the ground. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Just appreciating the time. So we are going to go and wrap up with a summary from all of the candidates. Apologies to everyone sitting this side of the room, because in the last 5 minutes, the floodlights have gone on the 3G pitch. So if you've seen any of us squinting, it's because there's a massive light over that way. We're going to go 60 seconds each, just as a summary from all of the candidates. So if we go again in order of alphabetical from a surname point of view. So if I can pass it over to Frank first.
This is a massive opportunity for our region, a massive opportunity for change and to deliver a strong leader who will stand up for our region, stand up for our communities who've been left behind, and really speak up against the status quo, business as usual. You have a choice. You can pick someone who's been the county council leader for 7 years, hasn't fixed the potholes and now promises to. Or you can pick someone who's been in government previously and wants to come back with the Labour government that doesn't want to do anything radical or different. How about we have someone in this region who stands up for our region, someone who's got a plan, someone who wants to deliver a green industrial revolution, to put us on the map, to make sure that we're future ready, that our education services are there to provide, that we're building decent houses, we've got manufacturers that are leading the way in the country, and that we are seen as a future powerhouse. What more of an opportunity would you want? We would be fools not to take that. And so I would urge every single one of you to think about who you vote for. Don't worry about voting for something different, because that's exactly what we need.
Thank you. If we're going to pass powers down from Westminster to our local community, it's important we have leadership that understands our local community. This is my home. I run local groups. I coach local kids. I'm passionate about this area and I understand this area. If we're going to deliver change, it's very easy to stand here and rail against the machine, to say, I will do things better. But I'm the only candidate actually who can tell you how we will do that, what levers we need to pull in this organisation, how it will work, and what we can deliver out the other end. I'm the only person who has worked on this and has the experience of this combined authority and how it can deliver those outcomes. So I'd ask you these questions as you leave and you think this over. Who is the right person who understands our community? Who is the one with the record of delivering? And therefore, who can we trust to deliver these outcomes with this new funding? It's a big job, it's a responsible job, and it's absolutely vital that we get the right person.
Right, I think it was over to Matt next, please.
Thank you. So, you've heard from Ben there that you need someone who understands your community and has a track record of delivery. Well, I absolutely have that in spades. I also have, I'm not mired down in the toxic opinion of the Conservative government at the minute, which, Ben has been part of and has dissatisfied a huge amount of this electorate out there who won't be voting for him. I have got the relationships around this entire region with all the partners, with all the council leaders. I've been involved in the devolution process from the start. But also, Frank talks about green agenda. It is absolutely right we need to be talking about the green agenda. It is high up on my list. The difference is I want to deliver it in a way that is acceptable to businesses and acceptable to individuals, so it is affordable and deliverable rather than a pie-in-the-sky idea. So if you want change, if you want positive change for this region, if you want the best of both worlds of all of these candidates, then vote independent, vote Matt for Mayor on the 2nd of May. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've heard from all of us tonight, and ultimately I'm standing because I'm passionate about the local community. I've talked a lot about a grassroots approach, and that's because if we're going to get the best for the region, we need to be engaging from the bottom up, not the top down. We don't need to centralise power. I would engage with local people, local community, local stakeholders, businesses, the voluntary sector, to really understand the region and what is needed. This is a great region, and it could be so much better. We can be greener, we can be cleaner, and we need to be bringing everyone along on that journey with us. Everyone deserves a great life. Everyone deserves a fair deal. It's about bringing people together and making sure that everyone in our society, everyone here, gets their best experiences. We can't be leaving vulnerable people behind. We need to engage with the local community. We need to go grassroots up. We don't talk from the top down. And above all else, please go out and vote on May the 2nd. Your vote is so important. Thank you.
This is my home. This is where I brought my children up, and it's where I want my children and my grandchildren, whenever they come, to have a future, just as I want the same for you and your families. And that means we've got to make this region the best place to live in, to work in, to learn in, and we need a champion who can do that, who has 30 years plus experience, not just in politics, but actually in real working life, who's had a job, who's run a business, who's helped run other businesses, both nationally and internationally, who's worked in public services, who actually knows how to take responsibility and accountability for the decisions that they make. And that's why I think we need a Labour mayor here to help to challenge the current government and to stand up for it, but also not just to work with a future Labour government, if we get one, but to challenge them too, because this is where we have to make the difference. And if I'm elected as your first East Midlands mayor, I commit to you that I will do that.
So, thank you very much all for coming out this evening. Appreciate it. It's a Friday evening. We've managed to make it without the fire alarm going off, which is fantastic news. So, can we please just have another round of applause for all of the candidates here? And once again, thank you so much for everyone coming out this evening to be part of this event. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think I've ever stopped and stopped.